Hi! In this video demonstration, we're going to take a look at animating post-pose using the biped skeletal system, bone system. While I kind of believe that the newer cat rigging system is kind of superior in almost every way, you may still run into places where you're going to need to use the old standard, which is our biped rigging system. A lot of studios that may have older versions of the software or a little bit stuck in their ways, or just have found things work out better for them when they're using biped, etc. Motion capture is a little bit easier with the biped, and some other things that may end up pushing you towards the biped system. Now, creating a biped skeletal structure, just as the name suggests, is for bipedal characters only. That does not mean you can't really force fit the biped structure into a quadruped, but you're never going to get more than 2 legs, 4 limbs total. So in a lot of ways, building rigs in cat is quite superior to this. But if your character happens to be a 2-legged creature that needs to move and act like a human being, then this is a perfectly acceptable alternative. So where we find the biped system is if we go to our Create tab, all the way over to our Systems, as it is a biped system, and you'll find the biped here. You can also find it, of course, in your Create tab, and all the way down to Systems, and there's your biped there as well. So we're going to go ahead and click that biped there, and we're going to kind of drag out, click and drag to create a biped skeleton. Okay? You're going to manipulate this skeleton, like most things in rigging, on the Movement tab. First things first, before we get going too far, a lot of times this is going to be necessary to really kind of take a look at your size options and your unit scale. So we're going to kind of jump up here to customize and down to unit setup here real quick. If you're working in the United States, chances are you're still using the United States standard feet with inches and all of that terrible stuff. We've also got this large button at the top here that says System Unit Scale. And just to make sure we're all on the right page here, I want you to click that button and make sure that 1 unit is equal to an inch in this case. If we were real smart, we'd be using the metric system and we could do it towards millimeters or centimeters, etc. But we'll stick with what we know here in our sadly olden United States stuck in our ways methods. 1 unit equals 1 inch. Go ahead and say OK, and then we'll switch to the U.S. standards feet, and then I chose just decimal inches. It's a little easier to calculate than fractions. And then we can say OK just to make sure that our rigs are about the same size, as it will kind of make a big difference here in the future. Granted, you're going to be dragging yours out to the scale of your character, whatever size you made your character, so sometimes that won't matter, but just in order to keep us on the same page, we'll make sure that that's where we're set at here. Then we're going to jump to the Motion tab. So I've got just the pelvis, 1 bone selected from our biped rig, and we move over to the Motion tab where we'll find most of our biped settings. The first things first is much like, we're going to take a look at the biped rollout here. And much like cat, there is a settings mode and an animation mode. And in order to turn on the ability to adjust this biped rig and maybe give our character more than 1 little stubby finger right in the middle of his hand, make him look like he's doing nasty things all over here, we need to go into the setup mode. And the setup mode in biped is called figure mode. So you're going to find it looks like this little stick figure guy here with a black dot right in his head. We click to turn that on before we adjust size, position, rotation, and all that good stuff in order to size it to our character. Sadly, the biped mode does not work quite like cat, so we can't make custom bone shapes to fit in our characters perfectly. But if we jump down to the structure, we do have some control over this thing. First is our rollout for body type. We've got skeleton, which is what I think most of us end up using. But you can also kind of get a different shape for male, female, or kind of a classic skeletal structure there. We'll stick with skeleton for right now. You have control over the amount of links for each body part. Neck links, we'll leave it 1. Spine links, probably don't usually need more than about 3. That's usually what I start with, and in case I've got a very stretchy, bendy character, it's no need for all kinds of extra bones taking up space and more calculation. Leg links we'll leave. Tail links, we're not going to give this guy a tail for right now. He doesn't have a ponytail, so we'll leave those at 0. Let's go ahead and give this poor guy 5 fingers, however. And just like us regular human being folk, we've got 3 joints in our fingers. So 3 finger links on each finger bone will give us, nice structure for the hands. And toes, let's leave the toes at 1, but only 1 toe link. We're going to make it so this guy, maybe he's looking like he's got some shoes on rather than anything else. The next really important one, you've got some props that you can turn on if your character is holding or moving with something in his arms. You've got the ability to slide where the ankles attach, which is makes things a little strange, but you can move them around just in case you did want to force fit this poor character into, let's say, a quadruped or something like that. You've got a little bit of adjustment there. Let's come down into the height, and since we've set it for feet and decimal inches, we can just hit 6 here, and we'll make just a standard 6-foot character. You've got the ability to you got a few other things down here, things for like knuckles and to triangulate the neck and all that good stuff, but we're not going to worry about any of those other things. From this point, let's zoom in on his feet. We are kind of going to want to scale this toe bone up, because right now it looks like he's got one little tiny toe. We want to make it look a little bit more like shoes. So if we kind of come up here and open up the track selection and select one of our toe bones here, we've got the option to do this symmetrical guy here, and then we can get our scale. And bear with me here, because the biped is a little strange, and sometimes thinking you're going to scale them a little bit wider in the x-axis is going to get them to go in the exact opposite direction with biped. So you've got to have a little bit of an open mindset as you work with scaling biped characters. And the x-axis is now going to scale our toes out, whereas the z-axis will give them a wider berth. Everything's kind of just dead wrong with our biped system here for some reason, but we work with what we've got, and that'll work for us. Again, that symmetry mode will help you kind of get both of them going at the same time. You can always copy and paste one side to the other as you set up a biped rig, but hopefully you're going to be using cat most of the time now, as it is a little bit more of a convenient system here. Once we've got our biped set up, as we do, we're not going to make any other changes here anymore, but know that in the future, you might need to seriously beef up your skeleton depending on what kind of character you're trying to force this into. A standard human skeleton doesn't fit into a short, stubby-legged cartoon character real well unless you really got to go through and scale all the bones to size, or as close to size as we can get with the biped. Again, unlike our cat system where we can kind of customize the bone shapes to fit like a glove, we've got to do the best we can with biped. But once we are done, we have to remember to turn off that figure mode. Make sure that it is untoggled so it will not show up blue there for us in order to do any of our animation work here. Once that's done, we're going to kind of minimize our track selection here. I'm going to open up the copy-paste rollout, as well as our key info rollout. And I'm actually going to kind of slide these two together here, because those are going to be what we're going to be working in back and forth. One thing about the biped is you want to set keys and everything. You'll still work with our auto key down here, but never use the set key button, because you're going to get some rather strange results sometimes, and some rather off-the-wall and bad things can happen if you just use this key, because our biped keying info gives us several different kinds of keys that we can set that work a little bit better with bipedal movement for hands and legs and feet and all that kind of good stuff. In order to create our movement, let's do kind of a simple fun run cycle here. We're going to need to create poses, a lot like we did in cat, where we're going to create a pose and then animate between the two extremes. We're going to do something similar here. Before we get going, we have to create a collection, and that's this little sunshine button down here. We'll want to hit that, and it'll create a brand new collection that we can then rename. We can name ours run or something along those lines. Then we're going to want to switch over from posture mode to pose mode, which is going to save the entire skeleton rather than just parts of that skeleton. If you wanted to resize your skeleton on one side and then kind of copy that side over to the other side, then you'll stick with posture and you'll paste opposite over while you're in setup mode or figure mode. But we're going to do pose mode here. And now we have to pose our character for some extremes that we might show in a run cycle. As always, please use reference. Even if it's just a mirror that you run in place in front of, or videotape yourself. Cameras are everywhere now. We've got them all on our cell phones, so this is a good way of getting some reference. Even if it's reference files that you may have from books or classes that you've taken. I know I've made a few for students of my own here that we'll do plotting out of different run cycles in our traditional animation style. Just another reason that learning how to draw and really knowing where animation kind of came from and how the traditional animators truly work comes in real handy here. So please use reference. It is wise, and it will make your run cycles and walk cycles and dancing and moving and any kind of motion that much better here. Now that I've said that, we're going to kind of just wing it for the purposes of our demonstration. So our run cycle may not turn out quite as nice as this little guy we've got running here, but it will get you the tools learned so that you can do this on your own later. Just remember, important, use reference. Really take those observational skills to the next level and look at how things move and act and behave in the real world. That being said, let's do the best we can for demonstration purposes here. And I'm going to kind of give our guy a different, maybe he's in full stride here. So I'm going to kind of open this up. We'll turn off our grid there so we can see what we're doing. And maybe pull up there. Good deal. We'll kind of take his hand, get my move tool, and we'll put green leg back, so we'll put green arm forward, and then blue arm back there as well. We may double click or click more than one bone here for the, and we'll turn him a little bit, as well as maybe adjust some other things as we go. Again, this may be a little bit stiff of a movement for right now, but I'd say that is worth saving a pose. I like to turn my save frames on, which mine are already on. I almost always work with my save frames there if I can. And I like to kind of zoom in on this because what we're going to do is use the snapshot from our viewport here. You've got several options underneath our copied poses here. One is capture snapshot from the viewport, one is capture snapshot automatically, and the other one is no snapshot whatsoever. But this is really nice because when I go ahead and I copy the pose, it's going to give me a little thumbnail here of what this pose looks like, so that if I am not too bright and don't name my poses, and we can call this full stride or something along those lines. And that description plus this little thumbnail here is going to tell me exactly what pose I'm about to load in as well. So now that we've got that in our copied poses here, we can load them in by using the paste poses. We've got paste and paste opposite, so that's pretty good. In order to get back to our just kind of standard, let's go ahead and hit the figure mode button, and that kind of resets him. And then when we turn it back off, we've still got our pose here that I can paste in, and we didn't lose anything there. So again, back, let's click figure mode, then unclick figure mode, so we're back in animation mode, and let's get the next extreme in line here. If you want to, you can Alt-X to make that pelvis bone invisible, because on the inside here we've got this BIPO1 bone, our actual biped bone. It's the center of gravity, and they like to hide it inside this thing, which makes it incredibly difficult to kind of grab hold of sometimes. But that's all right. We're going to grab this guy and we're going to bring down, especially if I kind of turn my grid back on. Here's our ground layer. I want to bring him down a little ways, like he's made contact with the ground here. We know he's going to make contact with the blue foot since it was in front for our walk cycle there, so I'll bring him up and maybe even over a little bit so that it's directly underneath his center of gravity. And then we'll bring his green leg kind of like it's getting ready to pass in that passing position or breakdown position there. There we are. And then we'll do kind of the similar thing here. We'll bend his whole body down a little bit there. The farther he leans, the faster he's running, right? And then his arms, we'll just rotate a little bit here. Should be fairly well at his side, but we never want anything to be perfectly symmetrical here, so we'll leave those a little bit out there. And then maybe his head goes down. And that's a good place to start anyway. You might want to rotate his hips a little bit, or even make some room for that impact. Like actually he'd be going the other way, right? So his impact is pushing that side up just a little bit, and then we'll compensate by bringing his foot back to the ground here. Okay, that's at least a place to start. It's probably not the best thing in the world here, but this guy's still a little back, so his arm's a little bit forward here, and vice versa. And we'll bend these as we need to, even worry about things like fingers and all that good stuff as we continue on. That being said, let's kind of give him into the same position here in my save frames. If I Alt-W, it'll blow that up a little bit bigger. And I'm going to copy another pose. This pose, I'll say, would be our passing position or breakdown shot. All right, now that we've got two different poses, full stride and passing position, we're set to really kind of start animating. So a walk cycle, if we're going to do a run cycle here, is going to be a little faster than a walk cycle. Let's say on average twice as quick at least as a walk cycle. And if we do our walk cycles on, let's say, march time, which is about 12 frames per step, we can cut that down in half to maybe about 6 to 8 frames for a run cycle. So now that we've got our two positions, I'm going to go ahead and put him back in full stride mode by coming down to this little copied pose drop down, selecting full stride mode, and then the two paste choices here, I've got paste pose to put him back in there. I'm going to turn my auto key on now because we're about to start animating. But remember, don't ever set a key using the key button down here when working with your biped. Instead, you'll want to use the keys inside the key info. And I want to select all the bones in my biped so that I select a key for every single one of them in this case. And we'll open up our copy paste and our keyframe info, and we'll set the key using this little red button here. So he's got a good place to start. And then let's say if we want up in the air, I would say it'd be a little slower coming down, and then he'll launch off from the ground a little bit. So let's give him 8 keyframes before the next pose is set in here. So we move our slider over to 8. We switch from full stride to passing position, and we will paste the pose in. And you'll see that we are already animating between the two here. Then he'll launch up a little bit quicker, and let's say maybe by frame 14, 6 this time instead of 8, we can go ahead and switch back to the full stride pose. Only this time we can use the other paste option here, which is paste pose opposite. So you've only ever got to create extremes for one side of the body. Luckily, it'll do the hard work for us and swap those positions. And we're off to a start. I won't say a great start, but we're off to a start. Here we go. 6, and we're going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you're good at math, you probably know that between 14 and 22, that's 8 frames. And we're going to go back to our passing position and paste opposite there as well. Okay, so we've got almost the full walk cycle, or the full run cycle, I should say. We just need to bring it back home so that it starts over again at the same key here as our first one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about to frame 28. I'm just going to kind of hold down Shift and copy that keyframe by dragging it over to 28. At this point, I can turn my auto key off for now and come down to my time configuration button here. And let's just truncate, shorten our animation timeline from 100 frames to exactly that 28. So that when we hit the play button now, we've got this character and he is in full stride motion here. Now we'll finish the keyframes for all this stuff, but then just to get rid of that little extra bit of a hitch, since this is where he's going to be starting here, I'll probably truncate my animation one more down so that this is where it ends and then he starts with only one frame in there, because that'll give you a little hitch in your step if you're going to do a cycle here by making this guy repeat twice. But for now, we want that keyframe there so we know where to set all of our last ones, and we can kind of continue on. We've done our extremes, our pose-to-pose animation stuff here. Now it's just a matter of adjustments. So I'll turn my auto key back on, and we will do exactly that. I'm going to come to my pelvis here, and I want to Alt-X. The wave sign, they like to call it. We want to make sure that this guy, in his full stride mode here, right, both legs are off the ground, he needs to be at his highest point. So depending on how extreme we want that, with just that BIP01 button, the biped bone, we want to raise it up a little bit. And then as he comes down, his foot planted here, great. And then as he goes back up, I can actually just copy, since I've only got the biped bone, that center of gravity selected, and just kind of copy over to raise him. And that's going to give us quite the nice stride there. And we'll do the same thing for that final one at 28. And it might be a little extreme, but I like extreme. Exaggeration in animation is a little bit easy to accept, and that makes him just immediately look quite a bit better there. Now, one of the biggest complaints about biped is that it doesn't work with our standard tangents. So getting the easing and the slow in, slow out principle to work is not very simple on this, but it is present regardless. We just have to change how our biped works. And down here you'll find another, I'm going to go ahead and raise this up just so that we can see it a little easier, above our key info, the quaternion and Euler. If we open this guy up, you'll default on this this quaternion. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that completely incorrect, but that's all right. So let's select all of the bones in our body once again, and if we switch this to Euler, we will have access to some of those easing tools. We'll want to make sure that all that's over there. So with it's on Euler, you can minimize that again, and we can go up to the biped apps, which we've got our mixer and our workbench, and our curve editor for the biped is going to be called the workbench here. At this point, we can actually take a hold of that biped bone and take a look at some of these curves. Now we've got a choice up here with the drop down, rotation curve, etc. We want the position curve in this case. And there we are. There's our wave sign that we've been talking about. And all of the high point keys, frame 0, 14, and 28 there, we can actually use our tangents now. And those should all be set maybe kind of to slow tangents, whereas the bottom ones we can set immediately to those fast tangents and get that bouncing ball kind of springy look to them. You can also select all of these guys and set tangents to auto. And then you'll have full control over these tangent handles. Holding down Shift will allow you to select each side individually, and you can kind of carve and curve these up to your liking. Don't select Shift, and both the handles will kind of adjust themselves at that point. And we can kind of, if I do hold down Shift, we can kind of get that arcing motion there a little bit better. We can also just kind of set it to slow for right now, or set it to fast, just like our bouncing ball, and that'll give gravity a little bit more of that realistic feel, so that he drops slower and takes off faster, and that helps him quite a bit. He's still kind of rising an awful lot there, but that's okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and exit out of that for right now. If I did want to adjust full well, grab that auto key, and maybe I don't want him rising so far, so I can kind of pull him back down and then move over and copy here and here as well. And that'll get him to rise without quite so much Incredible Hulk jump style there, but we still get that rise and fall. All right, now it's all a matter of kind of offsetting some keys to make him look a little bit less stiff and a little bit less robotic. I'll go ahead and leave auto key on. I always turn that off just in case. But maybe here, just for his spine, maybe we push that off one frame so that as he hits, his spine continues maybe down. And maybe for the whole spine, we do the same thing all the way through. And even so now his whole spine is moving just 2 frames after the rest of his run cycle. And we got a little hitch there because I move that back. We can always set a key here and then copy it to frame 0 by selecting and holding it down, Shift. It did work. Okay, good. And that should hopefully fix up a little bit of that. So there, now we've got a little bit more of a believable movement. You know, again, we would take some serious time to adjust a lot of this stuff, and we can do something similar for his head. Maybe his head takes 1 keyframe longer, but only in these 2 positions, and get these guys moving independently of each other, because again, we don't want that spine looks terrible. Let's go ahead and put that spine. Let me readjust here. I think I moved it over 2 keyframes. Yeah, and let's just put that back for right now. There. Whoops, don't need to copy that one. And we'll move this back there. And we'll have his spine not worry about that extra beginning, only from the middle points. A little bit of a jump or a hitch there, but we'll fix that as we go. At this point, we can start looking at things like his actual contact point rather than his passing position here, which is where we have at 8. He's fully contacted with the ground, but probably more along the lines of maybe 3 frames earlier. We want his foot to make full contact here, our contact position with that heel. Boom. And then we would do that again. See, here's where our green leg, 1, 2, 3 back, and maybe we'll pull him all the way down as well. So he's stretching to reach that ground. One of the things you can do here is, instead of just the regular set key, you've got some other choices here. We've got a set planted key, which will help you plant that foot a little easier. And then same 1, 2, 3 for our green leg. We can set a planted key. But then any of the rest of them, you know, maybe here where we want to start bending his foot to get it a little bit flatter and pull it back up, we might want to go with the sliding key so that foot isn't stuck in place but is actually sliding across the ground. Gives us a little bit more control over those things. And then maybe here we can also set that sliding key, and it'll try and keep his foot on the ground rather than what you saw a moment ago. It kind of jumps back up and down, plop, plop. We don't want that, so we're going to kind of set sliding keys between here. There we have it. And then for the green foot as well, next door here, here he's planted. Here we want to rotate his foot straight and then bring it back up and set that sliding key so that he just slaps his foot down there, and then we'll set another sliding key here so that pop-up doesn't happen in the center there. And now our feet are looking pretty good, and we're actually not doing too terrible. Just to make double sure that I don't have any extra frames, I'll select all of him, give myself an extra. Okay, good. And then he freezes. Good. Alright, so 28 frames looks like what our full cycle is going to be here. And you can always speed this up. You can scale these in a little bit here. If we select all of the range, you can scale these together a bit more if you want them to pick up speed, or scale them out now with our nice little scale slider down here together. But there you have it, kind of a good quick pose to pose a run cycle. And yeah, I told you it wasn't going to be perfect, but it's going to get the idea across as to how to animate pose to pose using Biped. We've got some promising tools, some good tools to use either way here. Even though I still strongly recommend you get best with the cat system, as it's a little bit more diverse, especially since we like cartoons and creatures quite a bit. But hey, there you have it.